In 2016, Professor Jonathan Haidt gave a lecture at Duke University in the United States. In the lecture, Haidt argued that every university should have a telos, or a purpose. The telos could be truth, or it could be social justice, but it cannot be both.
Thanks very much. Well, thanks so much, Bruce, and thanks to all of you for that warm welcome. So 2016 is a very, very strange year. It feels very strange around the world. Extraordinary violence in Syria and Iraq, driving political events in Europe, novel events the likes of which nobody expected. Of course, in the United States, our political season is producing something that nobody ever expected. Many people on both right and left feel that the apocalypse is coming if the other side wins. In fact, things are so bad that many people around the country are going to be writing in third-party candidates, such as Giant Meteor. Now, it's a very strange time for humanity, but it is a wonderful time to be studying moral psychology, because all of these conflicts, all of this division, this is all mostly driven by people who think that they are pursuing the good. They are fighting what they think is the good fight. Moral psychology can help explain almost all the conflicts, I would say all the conflicts that we are having around the world and around the country. In other talks, I apply moral psychology to the American situation, but today what I want to do here with you at Duke is to apply it to the university. This is the institution that we are in. Extraordinary turmoil began last fall on universities around the campus, and there's been obviously turmoil and political conflict on this campus as well as at most of our top schools. Now, what I'd like to do is look at universities from the perspective of moral psychology, and I'm going to show you two different ways of looking at a university. I'm going to open with two quotations from dead white men writing in London in the 1840s. So a very, very narrow range of human thought here, but extraordinarily far apart, and what they said is resonating and playing out today. So John Stuart Mill in On Liberty, John Stuart Mill is so wise about human frailties, foibles, biases, the awfulness of our thinking in many cases, and how it is that we need each other to think better, to correct our thinking. So as he wrote, "He who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that. His reasons may be good, and no one may have been able to refute them. But if he is equally unable to refute the reasons on the opposite side, if he does not so much as know what they are, he has no ground for preferring either opinion." Now contrast that, or think of a university based on Mill's principles, and it's going to clearly be one that strives to represent diverse views. It's going to reach out for viewpoint diversity and encourage a culture of debate and challenge, and only in that way can we find truth together. On the other hand, Karl Marx, writing right around the same time. This is a quote that I've heard a lot, and when I Googled it, what I found, the exact words, they're pretty similar. He wrote, "The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point is to change it." Now, you can hear his frustration with the professors, the academics, who will talk endlessly about this or that distinction, and he's saying, no, we need a revolution, we need to change. And so if we imagine a university based on a more Marxist approach to intellectual life, it's going to look extremely different. Now, what kind of university do you want? Do you want one focused on finding truth through debate, or one focused ultimately on changing the world? And I'll ask you to vote at the end of this talk. When I arrived at Yale in 1981, this is what it said over the gate, over the main gate to the old campus: Lux et Veritas. It's written right there in stone, Veritas, truth. I was inducted into an institution with a long sense of tradition, going back clearly to the medieval universities like Oxford and Cambridge, and going back all the way to Plato's Academy 2,500 years before. It was really thrilling to feel that I was joining a fraternity, especially as a philosophy major. You really feel that link back to the academy and the debates and the symposium and the ways that these early philosophers would argue and in that way improve each other's thinking. Yale did not live up to its mission perfectly. No institution does. The faculty clearly leaned to the left. I leaned to the left. But it had a very, very active culture of debate and argumentation, and it was so much fun. I have made my home in the academy ever since. But beginning in the 1990s, I believe, universities began to change. What was written over their doorway began to change, and I think they began to adopt change itself as more of the motto, the mantra, and not just any change, not just change for the sake of change, but social justice particularly. Social justice becomes much more important in the life of universities, I believe, in the 1990s. First, of course, from the various studies departments, the gender studies, race studies, all the different ethnic studies departments and areas, but then also the humanities more broadly. Now, let me make clear that many of the changes these brought about by these forces in the 1990s were for the good. To the extent that the faculty became diversified, that's all to the good. To the extent that the areas studied, why study just the leaders and the kings and the presidents? Why not study the common people, the people who are oppressed? So to the extent that this was broadening what we study, broadening the people studying, broadening the canon that undergrads read, the books that they read, this is all to the good. I'm very happy about those changes, but I think this set in motion in the 90s, a set of changes that are resonating today and that can help explain what happened last fall all around the country and the very rapid transformation that's occurring this year and last year. Now, so in my talk, I'm going to argue that no university can pursue both. Individuals can in their own lives, but a university needs to have a central mission, and it has to be either truth or social justice. It can't be both. And so I'm going to argue that we need a schism. We need our universities to clearly declare which way you're going. You can go either way, it's a free country, but you got to go one way or the other, and you have to be explicit about it, advertise that, and then students can choose which kind of university to go to.
In recent years, Cardiff University has pursued a course of campaigning for social justice. This has been done using tools derived from postmodern philosophy. One of the most influential of postmodern philosophers is Jacques Derrida. As Nasrullah Mambrol writes,
Derrida's concept of deconstruction displaced structuralism and undertook to decenter or subvert the traditional claims for the existence of all foundations, such as knowledge, meaning, truth, and the subject. Derrida identifies in all of Western philosophic traditions a logocentrism or metaphysics of presence. Post-structuralism critiques the binary oppositions in Western thought in which one term is privileged over the other, as in presence, absence, male, female, speech, writing, identity, difference, truth, error, mastery, submission, west, east. The former denotes the privileged central term associated with the logos or the phallus. Post-structuralism attempts to break down these oppositions by pointing out that one signifier does not lead to a concrete totalized signified, but to another signifier, which in turn leads to yet another signifier, and so on, in an endless chain of signification.
Derrida's ideas represent a 21st century sophistry, where perception is prioritized over substance. Derrida's writings influenced Judith Butler, whose seminal work, Gender Trouble, Feminism and the Subversion of Identity, was published in 1990. In the book, Butler argued that language was oppressive because it reinforced social expectations. She quoted French philosopher Monique Wittig.
The category of sex is a name that enslaves. The naming of sex is an act of domination and compulsion. The straight mind, evident in the discourses of the human sciences, oppress all of us, lesbians, women, and homosexual men.
Butler argued for the changing of discourse to downplay the significance of a biological sex and to promote the significance of a personal gender. In addition, Butler gives prominence to Wittig's idea of a category of non-binary.
The second, rather counterintuitive claim that Wittig makes is the following. A lesbian is not a woman. A woman, she argues, only exists as a term that stabilizes and consolidates a binary and oppositional relation to a man. That relation, she argues, is heterosexuality. A lesbian, she claims, in refusing heterosexuality is no longer defined in terms of that oppositional relation. Indeed, a lesbian, she maintains, transcends the binary opposition between woman and man. A lesbian is neither a woman nor a man. But further, a lesbian has no sex. She is beyond the categories of sex. Through the lesbian refusal of those categories, the lesbian exposes, pronouns are a problem here, the contingent cultural constitution of those categories and the tacit yet abiding presumption of the heterosexual matrix. Hence, for Wittig, we might say, one is not born a woman, one becomes one. But further, one is not born female, one becomes female. But even more radically, one can, if one chooses, become neither female nor male, woman nor man.
On the Sexualities and Gender Research page on the Cardiff University website, it states, "It has traditionally been said that while sex is biological, one is male or female, gender is social and cultural. But recent theorists, following Judith Butler, and including some of our members, see biological sex and gender as inextricably mixed, and both, in some senses at least, culturally constructed and performative." The claim is incorrect. It has traditionally been said that gender is a synonym for sex, and this has been the case since at least the 18th century. But in Wales, the Welsh Government intend to ensure that this is no longer the case. Those who see the world through postmodernist eyes do not believe in the value of objective truth. They just see different narratives that either cement or subvert structural oppression. The popularity of postmodern ideas within our political elite gives some insight into their mindset. Matt Greenough, pronouns he, him, was a special advisor to the Welsh Government between 2011 and 2018. He received an MA in journalism from Cardiff University in 2001. From 2011 to 2014, he was the Education Special Advisor to the Welsh Government. From then until 2016, he was the Strategic Communications Special Advisor. And from 2016 to 2018, he was the Chief Special Advisor to Carwyn Jones, the First Minister of Wales. In that role, he was involved in the commitment to make Wales the most feminist nation in Europe. In a blog post from 2019 titled "No More Whataboutery, It is Time to Make Wales a Truly Feminist Nation," Greenough argued not for equal opportunities for men and women, but for equal outcomes. He wrote,
"When it comes to the Welsh Government's stated aim to follow Sweden and become a proudly feminist government, there are some more serious examples of whataboutery to overcome, or so you might think. In education, for example, white working-class boys might be the ones who are falling behind and need a specific program of intervention. Suicide amongst older boys and younger men is as real an example of societal crisis as you're likely to find. And when it comes to tackling prejudice and the difficulties facing our black and minority ethnic communities, things even seem to be going backwards. So what about all these valid areas of concern? Doesn't opening a new front and demanding a feminist government risk undermining all of these crucial policy areas? No, of course it doesn't. If we can't, as a society, secure equal outcomes for women and men, really the absolute basic ground floor example of inequality, then how on earth do we expect to have the wherewithal to tackle those other issues?
In his reference to whataboutery, Greenough highlights a logical fallacy. There is indeed no reason why women's interests shouldn't be advanced at the same time as other issues. However, equality of outcome rather than equality of opportunity means social engineering. It is inconceivable that Greenough is unaware of this. In his blog post, Greenough further wrote,
"It was absolutely right for the Welsh Government to undertake a gender review last year to get to the heart of what is still holding Wales back 20 years into the devolution project. I was really proud to work on that agenda in my last few months in government."
Dr. Alison Parken, OBE, from Cardiff University, was chief author of the Gender Equality Review. In the Annex International Policy and Practice report that was produced as part of the review, she referenced Judith Butler, as she wrote, "Latterly, postmodernist feminisms, queer and trans theories have argued that on the way to creating a level playing field, the gender binary should be challenged, disrupted, and the fluidity of gender identities recognized." The postmodern ideas of Judith Butler found their way into the Advancing Gender Equality in Wales plan, published in 2020. Jane Hutt, then Deputy Minister and Chief Whip, explains the Welsh Government vision.
A gender-equal Wales means an equal sharing of power, resources and influence for all women, men and non-binary people.
So in Wales, the word gender will no longer be regarded as a synonym for sex, but relate to how someone feels inside. In his time as Special Advisor to Carwyn Jones, now Lord Carwyn Jones, Matt Greenough was also his speechwriter. In 2018, Carwyn Jones announced his ambition of making Wales the most feminist government in Europe.
Nobody argues in favour of gender inequality, but we have to make sure that actually we see the gap that we have in terms of pay reduced, that we make it easier, for example, for women to return to the workplace, perhaps after they've been caring for an older relative or for a child. All these things have to come together and work together to make sure that we deliver the best offer possible. Now, Sweden has done this. It's declared itself to be the world's first feminist government. Now, we don't want to copy other countries. We want to learn from them and then, of course, go beyond that.
Postmodern feminism requires changing the definition of words. As it states in Wikipedia, postmodern feminists argue that language constructs reality and that power is embedded in social norms, shaping identities and limiting agency. They seek to challenge traditional binary oppositions, e.g. man and woman, culture, nature, and deconstruct hierarchies. In that same year, Carwyn Jones visited the United States. Also on the trip was Professor Renold from Cardiff University. On the Cardiff University website, it states,
At the panel, Professor Renold shared the ways in which children and young people influenced the Welsh Government's Violence Against Women, Sexual Violence and Domestic Abuse Act through a series of creative activisms. They also discussed the making of the innovative national resource Agenda, a free, bilingual online toolkit created with young people to support them to raise awareness of and challenge gender-based sexual inequalities, violence and oppression. It was developed by Professor Renold in association with the Children's Commissioner for Wales, NSPCC Cymru, Welsh Women's Aid and the Welsh Government.
Professor Renold's online toolkit has been influenced by the work of Judith Butler. Children will be taught that they have a gender as well as a sex.
Stop transphobia, start accepting us for who we are, start supporting us for who we want to become regardless of our gender.
The resource for primary school children references a document created by Sally Holland, then Children's Commissioner for Wales.
Identity-based bullying refers to any form of bullying related to the characteristics considered part of a person's identity or perceived identity group. This can include disability, gender, gender identity, race, religion or belief, or sexual orientation. These are referred to as protected characteristics by the Equality Act 2010.
This is misinformation. It is a deliberate misrepresentation of the protected characteristics under the Equality Act. Gender and gender identity are not protected characteristics. Sex and gender reassignment are. However, to dissolve the traditional binary oppositions of man and woman and male and female, gender identity is required. Sally Holland was appointed Children's Commissioner in 2015. She left that role in 2022. She has been very enthusiastic.
In the first year, Agenda has reached more than 3,000 young people and practitioners, and we've trained more than 40 Agenda youth ambassadors.
But what's important to me about Emma's work is that it draws on children's experiences. She works with children to develop her research and any materials coming out of it. She was selected by Welsh Government to lead an expert panel on sex and relationships education. They came out with a really quite transformative and far-reaching and quite radical set of suggestions last autumn, and our Cabinet Secretary for Education announced that she would be implementing the recommendations in full on a statutory basis in Wales.
And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the expert panel members and its chair, Professor Emma Renold, for their excellent work.
Kirsty Williams was a major cheerleader for pushing agenda into schools.
It's really important to me that we ensure that children and young people in Wales grow up to be healthy, confident and compassionate individuals. And today we see the launch of Cardiff University's primary agenda. These are free teaching resources for those that are working in our primary schools with children aged 7 to 11 to help deliver really important, exciting and engaging relationships education. I hope that our teachers will really engage with these resources, and I want to say a huge thank you to everybody that has been involved. By working together on these important lessons, we can realise the dream of children growing up to be healthy, confident, compassionate individuals. So please follow along, and a huge thank you to everyone that's been involved.
In her 2007 book, Girls, Boys and Junior Sexualities, exploring children's gender and sexual relations in the primary school, Professor Renold wrote, "Queer theory is linked to forms of politics which deliberately seek to break down the fixed boundaries between the hetero-homo, gender and other binaries to multiply sexual categories and ultimately dissolve them." She also wrote, "Queering childhood involves not just the queering of sex and gender and sexual binary oppositions such as male and female and heterosexual homosexual, but also the generational binaries, adult and child." In the book, Professor Reynolds acknowledged the help of Alison Parken and Sally Holland. The Wales Centre for Public Policy is funded by the Economic and Social Research Council and the Welsh Government. The centre is based at Cardiff University. In an article published in 2023, Wendy Larner, the new Vice-Chancellor of Cardiff University, is quoted as saying,
Cardiff University was delighted to be selected by the Welsh Government to establish the Wales Centre for Public Policy and is proud of the success it has achieved over the last 10 years. The centre is acknowledged internationally as being at the leading edge of the What Works movement, and its work contributes directly to the university's civic mission through the positive contribution it makes to economic and societal well-being, locally, nationally, and internationally. We are looking forward to continuing to work with the ESRC, Welsh Government, and local government over the coming 5 years to build on the integral role that the WCPP has in supporting Welsh policymaking and delivery.
One of those policy areas is gender equality. In 2018, in an article titled 5 Things You Should Know About Gender Equality in Wales, Susanna Nessum from the Centre wrote,
The Welsh Government has chosen to define gender as how sexed bodies are lived, represented and regulated. Gender is therefore a broad concept, encompassing gender as identity and as expression, gender in language and media, and gender in socio-cultural norms and in law.
The hyperlink takes you to Professor Renold's document, The Future of Relationships and Sexuality Education in Wales, in which her new definition of gender is defined. This new definition of the word gender is being pushed throughout Welsh society, including into Welsh schools. This is in line with Professor Renold's goal as described in her 2007 book of Queering Childhood. In 2018, Professor Renold won an award.
Over the last 10 years, I've been co-producing research, activism and engagement events and forums with schools, youth groups, third sector agencies, policymakers, to support children and young people to speak out about their often silenced experiences, from sexual harassment in primary schools to LGBTQ plus youth equalities and rights. A lot of this work has involved designing and drawing upon creative methods for children and young people to safely communicate the issues that matter to them, and then to ensure that their views are heard and shared and acted upon. And one of the moments I've been most proud of was to distill this creative praxis into the Agenda resource and website. So this little film you see behind me captures one of the case studies in the resource of children writing on rulers and ribbons and kites what they want to change to make gender equality and justice matter and fly. And over the last 3 years, we've been sharing this creative praxis in an innovative professional learning programme for teachers in Wales who are preparing for the new statutory relationships and sexuality education curriculum, a curriculum which I continue to have the privilege to inform and shape. And it's a resource and a creative and ethical praxis that's having a significant international reach in the field of RSE, from Finland to Australia. But it started and it has become embedded here in Wales.
Former Education Minister Kirsty Williams has portrayed the social acceptance of this new definition of the word gender as akin to the repeal of Section 28. Where once Cardiff University may have been known for its pursuit of truth, now it is a centre of indoctrination.